Do Blue's Clues characters shit?
I mean, it's actually quite interesting that you bring this up, because logistically, there is evidence that they defecate.
Wait, hold on. That was supposed to be me engaging your Logan, because that's your Logan's wondering now.
Well,
so
it worked.
I did it. It worked.
It worked. So the question is, what do they defecate? Because quite honestly, it's a real mystery as to how they even... Where does it come out of? I mean, I'm sorry, did you say Logan?
Logan.
Who's that?
Who's that? We're going to be deep diving into Logan today, folks.
Oh my god. Hopefully, I think you mean we're going to be figuratively deep diving into Logan. Because otherwise, that has some horrible, horrible ramifications. Yes.
Anyway.
My Logan's very engaged now.
What's up? How's it going? It's a podcast, eh? What's up?
Hello, everybody. I'm Tegru.
I'm Amy.
And welcome to One Day Late Podcast.
One Day Late Podcast. Folks, we have been... Okay, we're not going to talk about this too long. But let me just say, I've been dealing with some crazy stuff at my job. I've been trying to do, like, this other big project that I've still been working on for a year. I'm still working on it. We're going to get it done. It's about Blue's Clues, ironically.
Is it about them shitting?
Yes, actually, that's the entire video.
Oh my god.
But anyway, that's personal. And, you know, if you know my content, you know that that's coming. That's just a lot has been happening on my end. That's just been a lot of chaos. So I'm sorry for any delays. Appreciate you still being here. That's all I'm going to say.
Life
also,
can be chaotic.
The other thing, just so people are aware, my camera on my computer broke. So if for people who are listening, it doesn't matter. But like for people who are watching video, I might be looking up a lot. That's because my camera's now here. Yeah. And it's making me forget. I forget quite often. So I'm going to keep like looking up, down.
I think it's fine because I think in the podcast, people are used to me looking off into like a direction. Like I never look at the camera, I don't think.
I don't think we need to look at the camera. Have you seen the nose lookers from the Rhett and Link sketch, the nose lookers?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we should look over each other's shoulders and not even look at the camera at all.
How about we just like turn away and just stare at our own respective walls?
I'm sure the audio people enjoy the fact that now the audio is not going straight to the camera, so they can't hear us as well. So that's just fantastic.
I don't know how well my microphone picked it up, but we'll find out.
You know what? With how much trouble we're having with all this, we should just cancel the podcast.
No, just cancel. Oh, just it's our once an episode. Let's get out.
I mean, I'm a day late. We're dealing with
we started
shit.
Talking about shit. Like
We just started talking. We started the podcast. It's over.
That was your decision. It's not my fault you engaged my Logan by questioning how childhood characters defecate. I can make a whole TED talk about how they might. That's how long I've been watching that show.
Doing that, you would be engaging your Logan, and that's who we're talking about today.
Full circle, we did it. So, Logan Sanders.
Logan Sanders. Just a reminder before we get into this, I'm going to say this probably every time just so we can be clear about it. All of the information that I'm gathering is from previous therapy sessions I've had or previous psych classes I've taken. Also, sometimes we look up articles, but today a lot of the theories that we're going to be talking about are pretty large. And things. So it's
a lot of our talk has to do with general experience and things that we've found and learned through either our own, communication with other people or our own therapy or, mild studies. But we're not professionals in that way.
We're not professionals. Not at all.
I mean,
so please don't.
I think I said this last time, but if you thought that we were professionals from what you've seen so far, that is more your problem than ours.
That's a problem.
I don't think we can even try any harder to prove that we're not professionals. So.
Yeah, I can pretend I'm a professional when I have a degree. But anyway.
Fair.
No, I can't, actually. That's a lie. No, I'm still not a professional. Anyway, okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We last week we talked about Patton, right? We talked about the character analysis and how that boy is absolutely just struggling under the weight of life's responsibilities. And like he hates it. He doesn't want all that responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna look at the one who wants that responsibility. He can't have it.
Oh, when you say it like that, it almost is the fact that Logan is really sad all of the time, which honestly moved.
I mean, that's how angst works, right?
Oh, we love angst.
It's the angst. That's all Logan is mostly. Yeah. I think that's all this series is. I think it's just a lot of angst.
Oh, the Sanders. I thought you meant this series, and I was like, I mean, a little bit.
We're just angsty bitches.
I mean, aren't we?
Aren't we though? Anyway,
aren't we all? Aren't you listeners? Aren't we all just a bunch of angsty analytical fucks?
That's why we're here. So okay. Kind of like last time, we're going to start with what Logan represents, and talk about like everything that Thomas has directly said about what Logan represents, and then go into like some theories that I feel like also add to Logan's character, and then we're going to walk through the different episodes and again kind of analyze his trajectory, where he's going, and what we've learned from him thus far.
I'm sure he'd be happy that we learned something from him.
You know what? That makes this episode just peachy.
Yeah.
I think. Figuratively.
Oh my god. Peachy like peach crofters? Oh, full circle. Logan.
That's patent.
Is there a peach crofters? Oh, there is a peach crofters.
It's peach and mango, yeah.
We did it. Oh,
no, that's Patton's flavor.
Okay, you know what? All of Crofter's is all of Logan's. So you know what? I think he takes stock in all of it.
You know, yeah, that's fair. So, girl, what does Logan represent?
Well, according to say again, sir?
What have we seen that Logan represents so far? What has Thomas said about it?
Well, according to episode 1, My True Identity, Logan represents Thomas's intellectual side and every fact that he's ever learned. Then later in A New Year of Lying to Myself, we learn more that he is his logical side. And in The Mind versus the Heart, we get more in the sense that he is the logical thinking and the interest in how things work. So there's that. Later on we find out, sorry, I'm like looking through the notes and I'm just like, notes.
You're valid. No, because I know that in that episode also he said, Thomas was looking at Logan and said, like, efficiency seems to be a priority for you. So, like, we're kind of formulating the backbone of who Logan is, kind of.
Logan is very much an efficient force, and, you know, a force to, you know, maximize Thomas's efficiency, as we learn later in the series, and as we see in Selfishness versus Selflessness, as he is described as the primary overseer of both Thomas's language center, but also the director of activities for his right arm.
Just the right?
Just the right arm.
Roman.
The other one is...
I cackled at that joke. I told you that earlier, but I cackled when the joke happened. I thought that was the funniest. I was rolling on the floor. It was that funny. Like, I was sitting in a chair, and then I was not. Like, it was that funny.
Really?
Yeah, I literally, like, obviously I'm okay, but, like, I'm a very, like, movement-based person.
I was going to say, yeah.
When something really cracks me up, I needed the gravity of the floor to help me.
I don't think I've ever had that happen.
I've so many times.
Oh my god, I think I'm just so scared I'm going to hurt myself that I don't fall at all.
Oh, I've gotten on my knees. Like, you can be talking to me just, like, standing up in front of me, and we're just having a conversation, and then I'm just, like, I cackle so hard that I, like, drop in front of you to my knees and then hit the floor. I've done that before, yeah.
I found a new goal in life. Just now.
No.
No!
I think just hurt yourself.
What? No, not to be that, but to make you do that, because I like to make people laugh.
Oh, it happens quite a bit, yeah.
Okay, good. That's my new goal. We did it.
Yeah.
That's very patent-centric. Anyways, back to Logan.
Anyway. So, I think what I'm trying to gather from all of that is, like, how would we define logic? Because I keep seeing logical side and intellectual side. Like, what does that mean to you? And I guess I can talk about what that means to me also.
From what I'm seeing, it seems to be like Thomas's entire general interest in learning, his, you know, I'm trying to think of the right words, which is not my forte.
Because for some reason I'm hearing in my head that like when I talk about Logan, I always say that he's Thomas's logic and reasoning, but I couldn't find that in the research. Does he ever say that?
I feel like it must be said in some place. Because that sounds familiar to me as well. I'm sure it said somewhere, logical reasoning.
Logic and reasoning.
It might have just been like in an episode that you might have missed or a moment you might have skipped.
Oh no, I'm imperfect.
Oh no.
Oh shit.
Dang,
Anyway.
Get out of here. Off this podcast with you. Because clearly I'm perfect. No. No, but Logan is his general database of facts and learning and any interest he has in keeping things organized, it seems.
Mm-hmm. It seems like he's that, and also like the pull for like education and for professionalism.
Oh,
and
very
also,
much
like,
for professionalism.
We're going to talk about that more, I know. But also like, I think logic just in the sense of like building the world around you. I almost think that Logan also has control of like the five senses, how like Thomas can like be a director, overseer of that. I think he connects like, I think he's the one that like looks at, for example, this computer that's sitting in front of me and goes, this is a computer. And currently I am talking to this computer. So like that logic, like he does, that's logic, but like he's the one connecting those pieces together.
Yeah,
and then when
seeing a thing and being like, oh, that's that, because I have that in my database of what is what.
That type of thing. He's also doing that with like audio sounds. Like he's that processing of Thomas's. And also, I think about Logan as, what was the other one? Oh, the reasoning. So like, if you say something and I'm processing it and then I understand that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Let me continue on with a different point or whatever. Like he's the primary overseer of Thomas's language center, which includes hearing or processing information and then sending it back out. That's fascinating.
What an interesting thought as to if Logan was to duck out like Virgil.
Oh.
Because man, Logan is in charge of so much. I think Thomas would just die. Like not he wouldn't, but like also he would be so inactive.
Arguably, because he's the director doesn't necessarily need to be present for things like that to function.
I suppose so. I guess compared to Virgil being his anxiety, whereas Logan is more in charge of a lot of it. He still would lose a big chunk because logic, but like in his thinking. But yeah, I see what you mean.
His functionality would go down for sure. He wouldn't necessarily be as...
Yeah, in the same sense that he does not move Thomas's right arm like he does not puppeteer Thomas's right arm consistently. It's just like an occasional director of what it's supposed to be doing.
I just realized we didn't talk about this before. Wouldn't it be interesting if we had talked about like what would happen if Patton ducked out? Did we talk about that last time?
Ooh, I don't think we did. It'd be interesting if we went through these episodes thinking about what each side would do if they ducked out. Should we take like a brief foray to talk about that real fast?
Yeah.
What would happen if Patton... I mean, if Patton ducked out, I think Thomas would be... Huh?
He'd be cold.
Yeah, I think he would be reckless.
He wouldn't have any kind of empathy. He wouldn't have any kind of love. He wouldn't have any kind of altruism. He wouldn't have any kind of judgment.
Well, some of that, yes. There's a part of me that wants to say that to some degree, Virgil would make up for some of the slack that Patton would leave behind. Because while the morality piece is important, he still might not do certain things because he's too anxious about the repercussions, even if he thinks morally it wouldn't matter if the morality was gone. So there's certain things I don't think he'd be as detrimental as when like Virgil left. When Virgil left, Thomas was like reckless in such a dangerous way, but I think the recklessness that Patton would leave behind, I think would be somewhat made up for with Virgil, if that makes sense.
But I think Virgil would definitely be enhanced. Like, I think he still would have empathy, but I think it would be hard for Virgil to explain. I don't know. I'm
saying he wouldn't have the empathy or morality, but I think the reason he wouldn't do certain things wouldn't because he thought it was right or wrong, but more because he was scared of what would happen to himself. It'd be a more selfish view. So I think he still wouldn't do certain things, but he'd be more driven to do them, or more thought that they should be done, even if he wouldn't always act on that, because the anxiety's still there.
Janice would win.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, Janice would definitely step into that, because he'd be able to control in that way.
Janice would step in so fast. Oh, that's so interesting. That's so fascinating.
Oh, that's the interesting thought, is that Patton going behind wouldn't lead Thomas to go actively mess things up, but Janice would just step in and Thomas would just relax. Imagine he just relaxes and he's just like, I don't care about anyone else right now. I'm just gonna treat me.
Dude, that's crazy.
That'd be interesting, actually.
Whoa.
That would be a weird dynamic, too, because then Patton would be like, oh, Thomas is so relaxed now without me there. Oh. Oh, no. Am I needed?
Angst!
Whoa!
All that work he's doing, that would break Patton. That would break Patton in half.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Dang. Anyways, back to Logan.
Listen, I'm over here in the uncanny valley with, like, these characters knowing I can crush them at a moment's So you're over here. You gotta be the empathy and the love here, because I'm not.
Oh, I am. No, I'm crushed right now. I'm sad. I'm thinking about these things, and my heart hurts for poor old Patton.
And I'm over here like, ooh, interesting story.
Oh, I am that too. Oh, I'm sadistic inside, but outside I'm a little like, oh. But inside I'm like, oh, suffer. Not really, but a little bit.
Okay, so if Logan ducked out, then I think Thomas would still be able to like move around and do stuff, but he wouldn't eat really well. He wouldn't sleep. I feel like he'd have trouble doing any of that. Because think about it, like if you're nervous, how would Virgil like influence Thomas to go to sleep? Like if you don't get sleep, then this will happen?
I mean, that's true, because he wouldn't understand what that even meant. I think Thomas would just become dumb.
I think he'd become dumb,
and I think he'd be like a little child.
Well, that's something that actually segues really well into my next point, because I don't know if you and I talked about this beforehand, but I think that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you haven't heard of this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically like a triangle pyramid thing that talks about what a human's basic needs are and then moves up the ladder to what's more important as time or as those needs get met. Okay. So the bottom needs are like the basics, like if you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. Like you have to have food and water. You have to have shelter. You have to have these to survive. I think Logan holds all of that.
That makes sense. I can see that.
That's at the bottom, and I think Logan is very focused on this hierarchy of needs when I think about Logan, because, especially when I'm like playing Logan, I really try to focus on that, because the next one up, I don't have it pulled up anywhere. Oh God. I think the next one is like, oh shit, I need to look it up. Hold on. Don't mind me.
You're good.
In the middle of the pod.
Pondering. Because it's interesting, because I'm trying to like, maybe I'm just putting too much faith in Virgil consistently, because I love Virgil. But my thought is that like, because if we're right about that, and that a lot of his survival needs are not being focused on because Logan would duck out, and so he's feeling like pains in his stomach, and he's like, what is happening? And the reason is he's hungry, but he doesn't think to remedy that. Would not Virgil be able... Well, no. Well, actually. I was going to say, would not Virgil be able to convince him to do it with fear of, like, what would happen? But Thomas also wouldn't understand the need to be alive at that point because, again, the survival needs are gone. So I think it's actually interesting that there would be a similar... almost a similar effect to Virgil leaving, in the sense that he'd be more reckless, not as caring about his well-being.
Because the thing is, like, the why do we get out of bed in the morning episode, I think Roman would have some pull there, because he's like, I want to be able to get Thomas to go do theater things, so he has to eat and he has to do all that, but it would frustrate him really bad.
Yeah.
He's not in control of that normally, so that would make Roman really frustrated, and I think he'd get burned out quicker. I think Patton wouldn't know what to do.
Oh, no.
I don't think Patton would know what to do. I don't think Patton would be... I mean, I think he'd try.
I think he'd be a decent effort, but also, like, Patton is not the most strict of people. Like, he's not going to be very good at
I
forcing Thomas to do what he needs.
I'm sitting here realizing that the earlier version of Patton, we're gonna talk about this later, but the earlier version of Patton is what I think of when I think of Logan ducking out, and I'm like, oh, well, Patton did this, therefore. But we've talked about how Logan is basically Patton at the beginning.
Yeah.
They're both the same character.
Well, I think it was other way around. Other way around. Patton is Logan, I think you meant to say.
But that's the thing. Like, the Patton now, I think, would have trouble. Like, he would want Thomas to eat, but, like, the motivation to get Thomas to do those basic need things would be harder because, like, he doesn't really care about himself. He's more caring about other people.
Yeah.
So I think it would be really hard for them to even... I mean, I think they could do it. Like, obviously they know it's important, but I think it would burn out quicker because Logan's the one that holds that.
Yeah.
So that's why... So that's something that's really important for me. So I pulled it up, and I'm going to link this in the description. I know we weren't going to do that before, but I'm going to do it again.
We literally talked before the podcast if there was any research that we needed to link, and now there is.
And now I'm like, oh, I got frustrated because I used to know it. Anyway, so the bottom is physiological needs. Okay. So like air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, like that stuff.
Survival.
Then up a level. So like when you get those needs, the next one up is personal safety. So you need to make sure you feel safe and you feel like comfortable where you're at. So if you're, for example, in a house out on the street, that's a little less safe than being in a house with a locked door.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's different than that. So like you're worried. So like if you're living out on the street, you're worried more about safety than you are about your like those other things. If you have those other things, you got to safety next. Whereas in a house like this, it's different.
Okay, so survival, safety. And then the next level is love and belonging. So like you need to feel like you matter. All right,
basically.
Fair enough.
And that's another thing that Logan really tries to understand and give Thomas because he's talking a lot about like in dealing with intrusive thoughts, he's talking about how, or that's not an example. hold on.
I believe in you. You got this.
Like, listen, ADHD sucks. Anyway, just the idea that Logan is very pressed about psychology and trying to make sure that Thomas understands like cognitive distortions and things like that. He's trying to give that element of like, that's important for Thomas to feel understood and loved.
So next, and he's gotten a lot better about that too, I think. In recent time, he's gotten more understanding of certain things that he knows benefits Thomas. And things that Thomas is attached to, like, you know, his career.
And I think this is where Logan starts to falter because, like, he tries to understand that, but because that's not as much of his thing, he's like, I don't get it.
He's gotten better, but he still has trouble.
Yeah. And then, I don't know if I explained this well enough. I might have said it already, but basically, as I said, like, every level is what a human needs. Yeah. And you got to meet the first need to go to the second need, and then you got to meet the second need to go to the third. For some reason, I didn't explain
that makes
enough.
sense. Okay. I think you might have said that, and I might have missed it, but I that makes sense. That, like, because without survival, the next thing doesn't matter, because if you're not surviving, then you can't get on to the next thing. And then if you're not safe, you can't worry about the next thing. So you need to build up. Okay, that makes sense.
Apologies. I got really excited about psychology. Because some of these things, I literally sit there and I'm like, I'm not that interested in it. And then I start talking about it and I'm like, oh, actually, maybe
I'm not so interested in survival.
So you need that physiological need. That's the theory, basically, is what Maslow was talking about. So the physiological need is you need that first, then you need safety, then you need love and belonging, then you need esteem. So like, but like, that's the thing. There's a lot of people who... not many people go all the way to the top is something that I'm also need to mention here.
Yeah, okay.
The theory is that people, if they don't have this, they're not as focused on this. So like for love and belonging, if you're not focused, if you don't feel like you have that love and belonging, then the next step, esteem, is going to be lower because you're not as focused on that. You're more focused on getting the love and belonging. So esteem is the respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, freedom.
So like personal worth.
Independence. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then after that is self-actualization. So the desire to become the most that one can be. So the best person healthy you can be.
Yeah, so motivation. I'm trying to like minimize these into like very digestible things because my brain's like layman. I'm like, how do I minimize this to like the easiest to understand?
That's the theory, and I think that Logan wants to be at the top of that pyramid, but I think it falters because he's not the one controlling how loved Thomas feels or how Thomas feels about himself, because that's where it starts to get to the other characters in the series. Yeah. So like he really makes sure that the safety and the food and everything else is good so that the others can be healthy enough to work together and figure that out.
Yeah, he provides a good base so that the others can build up the rest of the way to complete Thomas.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I was just about to say you're smart. And
feelings.
Feelings.
Denial of these claims. No.
Well, not. So that's something I think is important for Logan too, because I think he's very pressed about making sure Thomas functions as a human being.
Makes
period.
Sense.
So he kind of holds that bottom part of the hierarchy of needs. Yeah. And then the other part that I was going to talk about is, as I said, he seems to hold Thomas just. Oh,
really? Wow, that's an interesting point you just made that I understood completely.
I'm the smartest one here. Anyway.
Wow, I mean, logistically, true.
No.
Well, you're the studious, I'm the layman. Logistically, as this podcast functions, you are the smartest one here.
I just took some classes, bro. Anyway.
You're at least the smartest book smart-wise.
I guess.
I got geek smarts. Not street smarts, mind you. Geek smarts. Anyway, I can talk about Blue Squid's characters defecating, so. I'll never get off that point. That joke has to continue. I don't want that to be a joke that's too associated with me, because oh my god, of all the things, but like still.
I'm just envisioning someone in the next Q&A being like, hey, can you actually explain what you think about that? That's funny.
I mean, if they do, I'll elaborate. I can do it. I can host a whole gosh darn TED Talk.
You can ask us anything. Anyway.
Stay tuned for my new Blue Squid podcast. We're at episode 1. Don't actually, that's not happening. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that he holds Thomas's professionalism. So like how Thomas presents himself in like job settings and like what the adult, I guess. So you see that a lot, but I don't think it's talked about very much.
That surprises me because it's so present.
Well, yeah, it's so present, but I don't think it's directly said. It's indirectly implied.
That's fair. Yeah, it's never claimed specifically that he holds what Thomas is adult-wise. It's just sort of implied because of the fact that the professionalism piece is there.
He holds Thomas's adultery.
I'm so mad that you got to that joke before I did. Because I was literally so teed up to say it. And I'm the one with the patent sign on the visual. Oh.
I compensate because I'm missing my patent pin. So. Yeah, anyway.
So you're trying to turn me into the Logan while there's a Doctor Who trailer I could be watching? How dare you? That's blasphemy.
Absolutely. Anyway, so Thomas's professionalism, I threw a few episodes in to talk about like where I see that. So like growing up is where I see that the most, obviously. And then another one I know is like learning new things about ourselves. He talks a lot about like how Thomas should have a job right now.
Yeah.
And then can plushies improve our health is another one that's just like he feels like there's an adultness that Thomas isn't achieving. So he's trying to
and also minimizing childish efforts.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot, so I think it's something that should be noted that he represents.
Oh, very much. Which is interesting that, it's an ironic twist that the character that is the most representative of, like, an adult in that pattern is, like, the dad, does not also represent what being an adult is, which is interesting because he at one point did, but that has changed since. We'll talk about that again in another episode as we talk about how the sides have changed from beginning to now. But I just find that interesting how like that really shifted to become his thing, which again it makes sense a lot of the reason why.
Well, yeah, because it's a very we'll talk about this more later, but my perspective on Logan is he's very cold. Yeah. He's not logic isn't necessarily understanding
Yeah.
and kind. I would
It's
say
about
that
facts.
like a lot of people look at Logan as like the defense comes up. We've argued about this, that Logan has a heart, and like
Yeah.
he does, but I think because he represents logic, he's not gonna think of that first.
Oh, of course not. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I will fight that he has a heart. I will not fight that he uses it as often as he could.
That's so interesting to say, like, he doesn't use his heart.
Well, I think that's a fair assumption because, I mean, there are a lot of moments where he clearly has an emotion over something. As much as he wants to believe and as much as he has stated so many times that he does not have emotions, I think that's very much in the same way, you know, ironically, as a character who he relates to very hard, Sherlock has that same plight. He is someone who very much denies his own emotion, despite the fact that there are clearly many moments where he is struggling with something that, you know, only you would if you had emotion, and if you had focus on your emotions at any point. It's just that it's a minimal part of him. Not even that he tries to suppress that much, but more that just doesn't occur to him naturally. Or, like, again, instinctually.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a lot of something else that I wanted to add to this, because I want to add some other psychology things I've learned about. Because he's so focused on that professionalism and that adult, like clear adult mindset, I feel like he also holds like stereotypes, or like what are also known as archetypes. They're not the same, but they're close. Archetypes is a theory created by Alfred Adler, who I've talked about this on my TikTok before, but basically an archetype is like if you think of the word astronaut, you think of the dude in the suit on the moon, probably. But that's not always what an astronaut looks like directly. Like sometimes they're the ones who are actually on the Earth, not going up in the air, right? So that type of like assumption and that type of like societal norm, I think, is really built into Logan, and I don't think it's talked about much because it's a touchy subject right now, because of how ugly stereotypes can be.
Yeah, because stereotypes can be used in negative ways.
And archetypes, but like archetypes can lead to stereotypes, because like if you have a certain idea of a certain type of individual in your head, stereotypes are formed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But yeah, so it makes sense that he would be archetypes, because like we said before, it's those logical connections of that like audio and visual processing that would lead to those types of connections of like hearing a word and knowing what it means, and especially in terms of language processing. You know, it's that same thing.
Yeah, very black and white thinking in that base of Logan. So those are the two things that I wanted to mention psychology-wise that I always look at when I think about Logan. Because sometimes he'll say something and everybody's like, whoa, where's your compassion? He doesn't have any. Or he doesn't have any that he thinks about first. He doesn't have any that he thinks about first.
I was going to say, I think he has some compassion. I will fight for that point.
We need to debate this.
Well, I mean, there's a point later in this episode, an episode we can talk about, where I think I make a good argument that he has some compassion. At least to some degree. But anyways.
But anyway.
Next up, we have the real fun one that everyone talks about, which is, why is Logan disregarded? Or otherwise, why is he at least somewhat ignored? Which, ouch, my poor soul.
I think it's important to talk about this before we get into direct episodes, because this is kind of the main thing that Logan's whole arc is about. Because Patton was dealing with a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility and a lot of things that he had to think about, whereas Logan feels like he has that, and he feels like he knows what he has to say, and he has all this information, but no one listens. No one actually takes the time to sit there and listen. And I mean, there are times where it does happen. So like the question then is, why is Logan disregarded? Why is he ignored if he has all the information that he feels like Thomas needs?
Yeah. The first point there would be that there are a lot of things, because like we were talking about before, logic and, Logan by extension can be cold. And, you know, when it comes to facts are facts. There's not much getting around it. Logan is not really one to sugarcoat most of the time. And therefore, when it comes to harder truths or, you know, more blunt ideas that people aren't going to be as ready to accept, you know, and he's the one who presents them, it's going to be very likely that the people around him are not going to want to hear that because it's going to make them uncomfortable.
Think about it in the way of I don't know if anyone listening has ever been to therapy. I know I have.
Me too.
The points in therapy where you go, oh, that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person presents them as cold, hard truths.
Yes.
Sometimes the emotions and all that shit, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Gross.
I'm good.
It's those weird moments where you have to accept something that you don't want to accept. And you're just like, ew, get it away.
I mean, that's exactly what the entire point of my negative thinking is, the debate between Virgil and Logan. That whole mindset of Logan giving out like, duh, this is the truth, but Virgil's like, actually, you're an asshole, and this is because emotions. And Logan's like, what are you talking about?
It's also, to bring things to Janice even a little bit for a second, whoa, because it's now tainted in my mind. What?
Janice would have gasped. He would have gone, me?
Me?
He would have been like, oh.
I mean, of course, me. No. It's the reason, you know, this coldness in logic is also the reason why I think socially it's become so acceptable to say things like little white lies and, you know, little things like it's a lot of the big joke. One of the bigger ones, two of the bigger ones is one, kids asking, where do babies come from? And two, people in relationships being like, am I fat? And then you're supposed to be like, and you're supposed to be like, you look great. It's those jokes.
Yeah, and I mean, that one's a little different because everyone has a different opinion of what fat is. But
of course. And also fat is just not inherently a negative thing. But like...
That and also like the mindset of your logic is sometimes your opinion.
That's fair too. It's a lot of just like astute observations. You know, it's that blunt coldness of seeing something and being like, this is objectively what the case is, but needing to find a way around it because sometimes the truth is not fun to hear.
No.
So that's why, you know...
Sometimes the truth isn't right.
Say again?
Sometimes the truth isn't right.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's true too. Whoa.
Like sometimes what you believe is true isn't right. So, another reason why we think Logan is disregarded is because some sides just don't have the patience to listen to him talk about things for so long. And this one makes me sad because like
Same.
I think we didn't talk about this last time, but or maybe we did, I don't know. But I think the way that these sides have been formulated, they're a little bit neurodivergent.
Fair enough.
We've become a little neurodivergent. So the fact that like people don't actually want to listen to Logan talk for a long period of time is kind of like ADHD being like going off and talking about your hyperfixation or whatever, because there are a few times where Logan starts talking or doing something and everybody's like, I don't really care.
Yeah. And Logan is essentially info dumping.
In a way, but like I know info dumping can be a term that I don't know if people enjoy hearing.
Oh, I have no idea. I apologize in advance. I only base off of the things I hear in the communities I hear, and I know that is a term I've heard in lighter aspects. I've heard that term be used lightly, and lightly in the sense that like I've heard it be used as like a positive. So like I don't tend to see it as much as a negative as I think some people might. So just to clarify why I use that term in that moment, in case no, you're good, dude. Like, I know I've heard it both ways, that some people really like the word and some people really don't. But I also know that that's kind of one of the reasons I can tell that there's some people who don't. Like, for example, you brought up the point earlier, putting others first, where Roman just immediately goes ignorant. Ah, yes. There's the moment he literally just chooses ignorance over hearing Logan out. And that was a joke in the moment, and he did end up listening. But the fact that that's even like the jokey instinct, and I mean Roman of all people rather, is the type of person who has a lot of trouble hearing Logan consistently.
I mean, it makes sense because like fanciful thoughts and like dreams don't necessarily want to have logic just sitting.
Yeah. It's a clashing ideology, because it's like, do I want to think? I mean, it's the reason why you daydream in like, you know, school class, you know, or in a boring activity, because hearing those thoughts are not as entertaining as a fanciful creative thought.
Yeah. So that's a very possible thing. And I also think the last one is just like, if the sides don't understand the concept or don't believe it's relevant to what's happening at the other sides, then Logan is just ignored again, because like it feels like what he's saying isn't necessarily relevant. But obviously it is from someone. We're both very intense Logan kinnies. So I remember you saying, you were just like, but it makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, no, it definitely makes sense because we both love Logan.
It's always relevant, but
it's that the other sides don't get it. They don't want to get it.
And that's also, you know, mirrored in the fact that, you know, in a lot of these episodes where they ignore him at the start, they end up listening to him later when they realize how important what he has to say is. So it's that realization that, like, okay, what you had to say is actually important. It is worth listening to, because now we went without it for a while, and now we're dying.
Yeah. So how does... The question then stands, how does this show in Logan, this intense, ignorant behavior happening all around him, like he feels, how does this show in his personality, and how does this affect him? Because it happens a lot.
Oh yeah.
How would it affect you?
Well, both for Logan and for me, because I know I deal with that. I've dealt with that in lots of, you know, friendships in the past. Which the way we both deal with it is intense, bottled up frustration.
Rage.
Rage. Because it's hard not to get really angry when people won't listen to what you have to say. Especially when you know, or at the very least feel like you know, that you're correct. And also in a lot of situations when you absolutely know factually, logistically, that you are correct. Because when... Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're totally fine. I was just going to say, you know, it's an annoying, you know, words. It's annoying in itself just being interrupted in any instance, let alone when you feel like you have important information to impart that you think would benefit the other person, especially if it's trying to prevent some other further issue that may even affect you. Or in this case, for him, affect, you know, both himself and Thomas in the long run. So yes.
I also think, on top of the rage, because we'll talk about that, but I think it also adds, because he knows he's right and he's watched like the other side slowly catch up to the point that he was making in the first place, I think it makes him a little cocky. I think it makes him a little, I'm the best and you're all stupid. I think because literally the whole debate and learning these things about ourselves with the I'm the most important side here. Obviously Roman is the ego, so he's going to think that. But like Logan, I think it gets to his head a little bit because he knows he's usually right, even if it takes a while for both sides to get there. So with that comes a lot of rage when he's not right, and then also just like an attitude of like, I'm the best and you're all stupid.
Because, I mean, also speaking from personal experience, as someone who has been in a lot of situations where I've had to basically do the thinking for people, which is so frustrating, you do end up sort of having this air of like, wow, it's almost, I've said, and I hate to admit it, but I've said this out loud sometimes, when I have tried to tell someone something and then they don't listen, and then the thing happens, or then like it has proven my point, and I'll just sort of say out loud, and I'm like, wow, it's almost like as if I'm always right about everything, and I should be listened to more.
Like I said,
I am literally Logan Sanders.
You're literally Logan Sanders at this point. No,
it is amazing how I did not find this out sooner, but
I love that. I love that we discovered this today. No, that's fantastic.
Every time I think I'm done finding out how I'm like Logan Sanders, I find out more. And I think this was another moment where I just learned, wow, that is a really Logan thing to say. And I never put those pieces together.
Welcome to the deep dive of Logan Sanders.
The figurative deep dive.
Character analysis. That's hilarious.
Every time I say figurative deep dive, I keep hearing in my head Logan being like, yes, I mean, what would you be diving into otherwise? Like, I don't understand what we're diving into.
See, character analysis.
Ah,
You're doing You're doing fantastic. You act like Logan. Anyone can do it. Anyway, so with that being said, now we're going to start looking into the episodes and kind of with those thoughts in mind, kind of analyze and tear apart some of the choices that he makes, and then where he ends up where he's at now. Yeah. Because the series is still in motion.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah. I checked.
Oh my god, I'm excited about this fact. I didn't know at all.
Think there's another episode coming. Maybe there's not. I don't know.
It's crazy.
No, there is. But anyway, now I'll be honest, I just realized in the notes there's something that we didn't talk about beforehand. But
yeah, I noticed that too just now, and I was wondering if it was going to be brought up, but we just brushed that aside.
Do we need to talk about the mind versus the heart? I'm cool to talk about this.
If you want to start, you can. I honestly, for some reason, cannot remember what this episode is at this moment.
That's the one where there's a point where like Thomas sees all the dogs. He's like, oh, look at all these dogs, and then Patton goes, adopt them.
I love the fact that
what happened if you don't adopt them.
The thing that you just mentioned to me to remind me of that episode is the part I was starting to recall. The exact moment. I was like, is that the one with the dogs?
I'm always right. Anyway, maybe I'm...
Oh my god, now you're Logan Sanders. Oh my god. But yeah, so what's the relevance of My Versus Heart in his art?
I really just put this one here because it kind of is the first time that Logan is told he's somewhat wrong. Like, this is the first time you see Logan be told, hey, you back off a little.
Yeah, you're not doing what I need you to be doing.
Oh. And I mean, because the sides are still so new at that point, he doesn't really have much of a reaction to it. So that's why I was kind of like, I don't know if we need to talk about it, but it is the first point where he gets told he's wrong.
That is interesting. Him starting to realize maybe I'm not so perfect. And which I say realize I'm not so perfect because later on he definitely acts as if he is, so that's null and void. But like, it's only the first moment where he has that thought, even if it doesn't stick until later. Or I'm not convinced that he doesn't still think he's perfect, but
I think he does think he's perfect.
I think he's more willing to accept when he's wrong, but I think he still would deny if you said he's imperfect.
He's come a long way. I think at the beginning of the series, or like especially the beginning of season 2, he wouldn't have been as pressed about being. I think he would have been more defensive about the fact that people think he's wrong. But now I don't think so. But we'll talk about that soon. Because also, like, I think people listen to him more.
Oh, for sure. Well,
a little more than they did.
More and less. It's interesting.
We'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So, losing my motivation is the next
Sherlock
one. Because losing my motivation is honestly one of the more intense Logan-centric episodes because of how he's like, I got this. I'm going to figure this out. And then he's the problem.
I love that. I also like how one of the most I'm having a lot of trouble talking today. I've been very low on sleep. Is that what I sound like?
Nope, that's just the Mr. Epic Man references and he just makes noise whenever someone messes up.
Oh my gosh. But I was just saying, I like that. What?
Shameless plug to Mr. Epic Man. Don't worry about me.
I was just going to say that I like that one of the more Logan-centered episodes is also one where I feel like while Logan is definitely in character in the sense that he is very analytical and trying to get to the bottom of the point, it's also not one I would say is very Logan in character because he's cosplaying and pretending to be Sherlock. And that is so in character and so not in the same time. I love it either way. It is not a criticism of like, how dare this episode. I freaking love this episode. I cannot even stress how hard I want more Logan Sherlock. But still.
I think, honestly, it kind of plays into an idea of like, the hyperfixation mindset.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe like his just pull, like I wonder if, because I don't know if this is canonical, but I'm assuming it is because Thomas has ADHD. Like it's been announced now that the real Thomas Sanders has ADHD, so why wouldn't the sides also have that? And so those hyperfixations I think Sherlock could play into that.
I like that.
And I think Logan could hold that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that works. I like it.
Because as somebody who has a very immense and like unrelenting love of uncanny shit and robots and like possession and stuff that just humans are gone and there's something else there and that's weird. It doesn't make sense, but I can't say that I feel like it's connected to my heart.
Yeah.
For some reason. It feels like it's connected to just like, I need that content.
That makes sense.
I don't know what it is, but I need it now. So if Sherlock is part of his hyperfixation,
yeah,
I almost wonder if that could explain those interesting choices that Logan makes.
I'll take it because I love my quirky little smart idiot.
That's interesting to me. Anyway.
And that is exactly how I describe Logan. Quirky little smart idiot.
Quirky little smart idiot.
He's the smartest dumb boy I know.
Wow.
Just like Sherlock himself. Wow. I'd categorize Sherlock the same exact way. He's the most brilliant idiot that there has ever been.
I just realized my computer's dying, so I'm going to go.
Oh my god. Well then. I guess I can start talking more about losing... Oh no, we just did talk about that. I can start bringing up moving forward. While Amy is far away.
That's my favorite episode. Anyway.
Oh my god, it's the episode that makes me feel things. I mean, all of them do, but this makes me feel sadder things.
It's so good. Well, something about losing my motivation before we...
oh, yes.
Just the fact that he realizes he's wrong sometimes, so it's another time where he's being told he's kind of wrong and that he's not always perfect.
I think I didn't realize that we didn't talk about that yet. We just talked about Sherlock.
We just talked about Sherlock.
I got thrown off. No,
that's fine.
That is another instance of him realizing that he is wrong, and he is even, like, you know, a problem in certain moments. And it's also interesting that he's so quick to blame everybody else, which again plays into that cockiness, that he's so willing to accept that anyone else has to be the problem, and he is the very last person he would ever think of in that regard.
Yeah.
He has a bit of a thing with that. He's not very good at taking that responsibility in this time.
There, yeah. Does that mean Logan's toxic?
Oh no.
Is Logan? No, because I think he's learning. He's growing out of that.
Yeah.
But like for a while, he was very like.
It would be toxic if he wasn't
right, wrong.
Yeah.
Mindset. Anyway, weird.
If he was stuck in that mindset and never moved out of it and never changed, that would be toxic. But the fact that he is learning and he feels that guilt in those moments and he has changed since, even if minorly, that is important.
Yes. I think that is interesting because when I do play Logan, I always like try to... I don't have that. I think the lack of empathy really plays into that quote-unquote toxic mindset that we're playing on right now. That's interesting. Right. Okay. So moving forward is the first time he was fully disregarded on camera.
It's so sad.
Like intensely, blatantly told to stop.
Literally just told to fuck off.
Told to fuck off. And like, that was a pretty big moment for Patton too, to be able to be like, yeah, because both of them, like, that's way outside of both their normal lives. I think it's really important for Logan because you can see his reaction, a really intense reaction for the first time of like, just the, sorry, I thought of a different thing in the middle of it and my brain like, but like, the idea that he literally is just like, you know what? You're wrong. This is yours to resolve. Mm-hmm. Bye. Fuck you. Yeah. And I went, oh.
I'd venture to say that that's the first episode where he felt unwanted.
Yeah.
Because that was a big part of that too, is that he felt like they didn't want him to be there. Like, he may have been like, there may have been moments where he felt like, you know, the problem, where he felt like there was something that he needed to fix. But this is the first time where everyone was just like, we do not want you here. You are bothering us.
That's weird.
And that's real weird and real sad.
And imagine like the emotional repercussions of that. Like, even though he's not fully a person with multifaceted parts of his personality, that still hurts because like that need for belonging.
Yeah.
protect a person, because once you, like, this is such a weird example, but I was about to bring up Shrek. Like, the idea that...
Shrek!
Genuinely, though, like, think about it, because Shrek gets shoved away from people so often, and people shove him away, and they just hate him. It becomes part... He starts to accept that life, and then put on that front of, like, you can listen to what I have to say, or you cannot, or whatever the case, this is what I have, and then I'm going to leave because I know you don't want me here.
Oh, that actually does super play into his characterization later.
Look at me, bringing Shrek in here.
Oh my god. It actually plays into an episode we don't have on the list, so I think I'll just mention it now real quick. In putting others first, that's his entire attitude. By the end, when real Logan comes in, he straight up says, I'm just going to say my piece and then screw off because nobody wants me here. And then they try to reassure him and he's like, anyways, my facts.
I mean, honestly, because that's another time he got directly shoved out.
Yeah.
I mean, we argue about that.
We argue about if Logan was Logan from the start or if Janice was Logan the whole time up until that point.
Argue, I mean, we can get into that debate later, but I definitely believe that Logan, at least whether it was Janice or Logan, I think he was shoved away by Patton again.
Yeah. I think he's used to being shoved away by Janice even, just by being pushed aside.
Well, right, but I think the fact that Patton chose that option was hurtful.
Chose which option?
Chose the option to get him out. Remember the two buttons?
Oh, he hit skip at one point, didn't he?
Oh, he hit skip.
Oh, so if that was Logan, that was blatantly like, I don't want to hear you right now.
Oh, that was Patton. Yeah.
Sorry, did you just become Irish?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that was Patton.
That was Patton.
Top of the morning to you, laddies.
Top of the morning. Top of the morning. Sorry.
We are Jacksepticeye.
Another unironic. Bringing him in. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So. We're never.
Anyways, now that we're done being Irish.
We're never on
there are moments in certain episodes where I'm like, what have we accomplished so far? Like, what have we done that's not the episode at hand? And we've talked about children's characters defecating, and we became Jacksepticeye. So anyways...
I don't know if people fully believe that we're friends yet, so I'm just throwing shit in.
We just need to prove how on the same, completely disconnected from the entire world that we are. Like, on the same wavelength that nobody else will ever be on.
Yeah. No, completely.
Yeah, because clearly we haven't proven that enough from, like, the first couple of seconds of this, like, of episode 1 of this podcast.
Absolutely. This is fantastic. Something I wanted to add remember when I said that there were two thoughts coming in at once?
Yeah.
The other thought was, I was thinking about adding the Logan and Virgil debate, but I really think I didn't add that because I felt like that was such a Virgil-centric episode.
Yeah. Because
we were learning how to stop Virgil thinking about what Virgil's talking about.
That's fair.
So I left that out, even though that does have the first falsehood.
It also has, like, it also plays into what we were saying before. We might have, I don't know, I already forget if we already brought this up while we were talking about it earlier in this episode, but it plays into the cold truths, the blatant, objective truths, and how that affects around him, because that was the whole crux of that episode beginning, was that he looked to Logan for comfort, and if Logan said, objectively, you messed up. And that's that same thing of, like, objective truths can be discomforting, and that's why people tend to push him aside.
Logan directly went, yikes.
Yeah. He was like, objectively? Nah.
Oh my god, you said objectively, and then in my head I heard Logan go, anatomically, Thomas is fine. And then I heard Virgil, why do you only take whatever I say literally?
Is that consistent? Is it only ever Virgil, or is that just, no?
I don't think so. I think just in that episode specifically, yes, it's only Virgil.
It would be interesting if we looked back and found out that he only ever takes what Virgil says, literally.
I hope so.
That's
but
worth
it really
looking
was like 3 in a row of only Virgil, and then he added that as a joke.
I love that. I love that.
So I love it. Anyway.
Oh my god. Yes.
Okay.
I like how we both blank out as we're looking at notes. We're both like, next point is...
It's great. We should cancel the podcast because we have all these pauses in here.
Oh
it's
my
just
god, canceled by. See ya.
Cancel the podcast. Anyway, so okay, the next part that I have here is learning new things about ourselves, because that is an episode that it gets me a lot, because Logan is really mean in that one. And like part of me, the thing is, I don't disagree with anything that Logan's doing for Logan's character. I think.
With his character, no, it all falls in line.
Characters, yeah, no, but like it feels so out of place in a way, also, because it's the first time that we see his rage.
Well, that definitely. But before we get to that, I just want to say that in terms of how he is up until that point, I think it also does, in retrospect, make sense why he's a little bit like more annoyed and more like strict and angry than usual. Because not only is the crux of the problem the fact, man, take a shot every time I say crux in this episode, because I feel like I've said it 17 times.
Dang, I don't have alcohol.
Oh dang! But the whole issue derives from the fact that Logan wants to be taken seriously, and it was that friend that caused that. So not only is he already feeling that way about that, which I don't think he is explicitly said at the beginning, so that comes out later. So not only is he already thinking about not being taken seriously, but then the way that the other sides are trying to fix this issue is by doing something that makes it even less serious. So it's understandable why he would see that and be like, not only is this what I'm dealing with right now, but you guys are doing this, which is making it worse. You're exacerbating the issue while trying to solve the issue. Yeah. So I could see why he would take that and be like, you guys are on my last nerve right now.
That's a fair point. Mm-hmm. That's a fair point.
And then he gets real angry with a piece of paper. Actually, index card. It's specifically an index card, I think. Is it not?
Yeah, that's... I don't know. It's just... I think it's just a piece of paper. Maybe... Yeah, I wouldn't think he'd crumple up one of his note cards.
I think that's specifically what happened, though, because why else would he have had paper in his hand? I think he was holding an index card a second ago.
He's Logan. He always has paper in his hand.
That's factually incorrect.
He's always taking notes. In some capacity.
I suppose, but I think he specifically had an index card.
He has all the time. He has one on him. But so he could have just ripped something out of his notebook.
It was in his hand already. I think he was making a point about something. Tell us in the comments. No,
I don't know. We didn't look back at it. I didn't look hard.
I'm 90% sure it was an index card he had just recently used.
Okay.
Whatever the case, he threw it at Logan, at Roman.
He threw it at Roman. That's pretty intense. So that is the first time we see his rage manifest physically, and I think it's interesting to have. It's just, yeah. No, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I say like I think it's interesting, and then I'm like, wait, no, never mind.
Certain things that like can't be brought up, or just not sure where you're going with a certain point.
I'm not sure where I'm going.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I do that a lot sometimes too, where I'll be like, I think I know what I'm about to say, and I'll get to the point where I'm going to say it, and then I can't figure out what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Also, just want to bring this up real quick, because if I don't, it'll drive me nuts. The video seems to be glitching a little bit, so apologies to anyone who's watching the video version. It seems to be glitching on our side. Maybe that's not going to show in the recording. It might. Anyways. I saw it happening, and it was happening a couple times, and I was like, I need to mention this before I drive my own self crazy. So anyways, we seem to be good. There's a couple glitches here and there. My computer doesn't like it, existing. Which, mood. But yeah, it is the first time we see Logan get real mad and really take it out on someone else.
That's crazy.
Which is new. And it came with a whole new camera angle and everything.
New camera. And it's also like, it's good. Sorry, my film major came in.
Got like good cinematography?
Yeah, because I did a little bit of cinematography in my school time. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, but yeah, I think, you really start to see Logan's rage. So anyway,
it's this building force.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh. Well, before we get to the next episodes, should we do a Mind Palace moment?
Let's do a Mind Palace moment.
Oh my god, let's do it.
Hi, it's Remus. Shh. I broke Patton's kazoo. I dropped it in the street. Don't tell. I have to hold it like this. No. Physical fitness with Remus. Oh. The tires on this bike are flat. That won't stop me!
Remus, I wouldn't do the... Oh, okay. Well, that was... moment.
It definitely was. I can't really describe it as anything else other than just a moment. Because what?
Yeah. I don't... Yeah. Remus is...
Remus
Apparently
is...
it's physical fitness with Remus at this point, so we're going to be...
Speaking of Remus...
Logan!
Oh my god, wait, speaking of Remus, segue into our next episode dealing with intrusive thoughts.
The timing... We planned that.
We did not, but it was beautiful.
Oh. We did not.
So wait, in your logic, last episode we admitted that the 1 week break thing was not actually a planned thing, and instead was like a whole thing. But like this is the thing we're gonna lie about.
Girl, I need you to understand that I want this podcast to be a total enigma to the listeners. Okay,
I think
want
we've
them
achieved that.
Confused all the time. They never know what's happening, and I don't know what's happening. Therefore, this is just an enigma. Mm-hmm. Do you understand, viewer? Do you get that?
I think if anything else, if nothing else, this podcast, I think people will admit that it is an enigma.
Yes.
With the tangents that we go off on, I think it could be categorized as nothing else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyways,
quite, indeed.
Back to
Excuse
Logan.
Me,
and sorry. Did you just say you burped?
I burped and I said, "Excuse me." I just had M&Ms.
Yes, M&Ms, the gassiest of foods, clearly. Remember that time a second ago where we said we were an enigma? That. Anyways.
That.
And yet I'm the layman. Anyways.
What's special about Logan and dealing with intrusive thoughts, Tech Girl?
Oh my god. Well, it's another shining moment for our necktie boy. He feels seen. He gets to feel seen for a little bit, which is increasingly rare. This poor lad.
On camera.
On camera.
Regarded for the first time in a while on camera. Because like before, he was kind of getting that with my negative thinking, and he was getting that in growing up to an extent, but he realized he had to turn around. But like, this is like for the recent times he's been kind of walked over. Mm-hmm. And so this is the first time that people really listen to him. So honestly, like, I'll be honest, when I hear people in the fandom being like, "Oh my God, he hasn't been listened to in so long," I'm sitting there going, dealing with intrusive thoughts, literally, they listen to him the whole time. Like, that's a really...
I forget if they... In the beginning, well, because Virgil and Patton were pretty strong in their fears during that episode for quite a bit. So I don't know if they were listening at first. Fully.
Oh, they weren't listening at first.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
When they realized Logan had some power.
That's fair.
Logan knew what he was talking about.
The power to revive, in fact.
Yeah, and I think, that like, you can see in his whole being changing and his soft energy that the fact that he's being listened to, he's starting to ease up. He's not like angry, he's not raging or anything, he's just talking. Yeah. And it's one of my, Intrusive Thoughts is one of my favorites. It always has been.
It's a really good one. But,
And the fact that, like, the moment at the end where they say he's cool, like, you gotta bring that up. You just gotta.
So good. It's nice to see him feel important. It's all he ever wants. And that's another one of those moments where it's like, okay, he clearly does have, some emotions. He has a heart inside of him because that meant something to him. That was important to him.
And I love the detail because I love Thomas's acting, and I'm going to go into it every time I can. Mm-hmm. I love the idea that Logan didn't smile.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't think he smiles much in season 2, if at all. No. Like, he does to an extent, like, when he's talking about, like, a hyperfixation, maybe, like Crofters or something. But, like, in the mindset of specifically, like, just him being himself, he never smiles. So I'm really kind of excited that he didn't smile in that moment.
It was a look of disbelief. It was a look of, like, shock and, like,
oh, shit.
Me? Whoa.
I love that moment with every fiber of my being.
It's
so good.
More powerful than if he did smile, I would say. Because I feel like if he just smiled, it'd be like, oh, cute. But the fact that he was so like absolutely taken aback that the idea that he thought at least that he's cool and so useful in that moment, it felt so much more meaningful.
Genuinely though, this also goes into our debate about like whether Logan has emotions and has like compassion or whatever, because like I would argue that that's the way he expresses that joy. That's the way he expresses that feeling seen and understood and compassion, like receiving that compassion. That's the closest you can get.
Yeah. Well, again, the argument there is that, like, I agree that he has minimal emotion, but I still would argue that he has emotion. That feeling of joy and pride in that moment, that feeling of that desire for worth in that respect, I think is an emotional response. But I will say that he's not going to experience such intensely strong emotions as others would, and not nearly as consistently. But I will still fight that he has emotion, but agree that it's understated.
Okay. Yeah.
We agree in that respect, at least.
Yeah. So with are there healthy distractions is just another example of him being heard and understood, and he's starting to ease up. There's a chunk of time there where he's just chill, but then like
Frozen.
Let it go. Anyway,
do you want to build a snowman? Ice song. Sorry, I couldn't think of the ice song.
I just sang it.
No.
The Born of Cold.
Yeah, you dingus. Ice songs can be referred to as most of the songs in this movie. I'm not talking about just the song that happened to have ice. I'm talking about a specific song about ice. What are you talking about? Jeez. That's like if I was to try to describe a song from My Little Pony and be like, oh, it's the one with the horses in it. It's like...
No. Listen. I get to stand up for myself a little bit because Elsa makes an ice palace in that one. So, like, Let It Go has some ice potential.
Would you count that as an ice song?
Yes.
No.
Because there's ice in the song, Tegreal.
What? I mean... Okay, so is Love is an Open Door the chocolate song? Because they talked about...
Yes, you understand.
I'm so fucked up on all this chocolate right now. Oh my god. That's one of my favorite lines in that episode.
Or for the first time in forever could also be the chocolate song because she really goes, I want to stuff chocolates in my face.
All songs in this movie are the chocolate song.
A chocolate and ice. That's all Frozen is. Anyway, moving on.
Chocolate and ice.
When Logan he has that moment of reprieve.
Sorry, I'm distracted. My brain said chocolate and ice, and I was like, oh wow, this movie should have been sponsored by Wendy's, because the Frosty. Anyways. Layman.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, so working through intrusive thoughts and putting others first are the first moments in a while, again, that he is completely disregarded after SBS. SBS, he's disregarded because he wasn't invited to the courtroom scene.
Yeah, but not even disregarded in the sense that people weren't listening to him. Because they were. When he was contributing, he was listened to.
So I like that he has some time that it eases up and he's like actually feeling understood and actually feeling seen. And then when it comes back, he explodes.
Yeah,
he's
it's
like
the calm before the storm.
It's the calm before the storm. Because that's when working through intrusive thoughts happens and the rage just explodes.
Oh yeah, because Remus really pushes his buttons through that whole episode. And I hate to say it, Thomas doesn't really help.
It's all bottled up.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to what we were talking about last week. It's just all bottled up insecurity.
And Logan tries so hard in that episode. Because he's trying to be so accommodating. I think that was a point that I was bringing up earlier. That I was saying that he has some emotional or care and empathy. Because a lot of that episode is him giving Thomas a lot of grace and trying to be like, okay, I know you shouldn't do this right now. The thing that I want you to do that you need to do. You shouldn't do it right now, actually. Take a break. Do a fun thing because I can see that you need it. So that's a lot of that moment of like him being very caring to Thomas. And that's even sadder because he's being so accommodating this episode just for everyone to screw him over.
It's also like he's working on those accommodations. He's trying to get to a point where people are more willing to listen to him because he's wanting to work with them. And I think it's also very interesting how much Logan knows about psychology. I think that that's it's due in part to the series being about psychology. It can guide those psychology things forward, but also I think it's interesting that because it almost makes me think that he's learned so much about psychology so he can learn to work with his fellow sides.
Yeah. And to be understood better, and to understand Thomas better and how to deal with him.
Yeah.
I said deal with him. I always hate saying that in relation to everything, because deal with him has such a weird connotation. But, like, to be able to better help him.
Yeah, better help.
I had the same thought. Anyway. I had the exact same thought right there.
So, yeah, that's interesting, because, like, he's trying so hard. And, I mean, we're about to talk about like what specifically how the characters have impacted our lives. I think we could probably just move into that right now.
Yeah, fair
just
enough.
The idea that I really heavily related to Logan for a long time because I mean he was my favorite for a long time. One, because he's kind of uncanny in the fact that he like, you know, he's almost robotic because I like robots anyway. But either way, the fact that like he's trying so hard to get to a certain goal and it just won't happen. And I think the fact that Logic is so cold and the fact that Logic is just trying so hard, I feel very connected to that a lot. Especially in the fact of like, I don't know. I see a lot of myself in Logan and trying to, in feeling misunderstood in what I'm trying to do and people saying that like, oh, you're doing it wrong or you need to do it this way or whatever, when I know what I'm doing for myself is right. So
that's honestly very fair. Oh my gosh.
That's a big thing. The need to be understood.
Yeah.
I said I have ADHD, and in having ADHD, I was told a lot as a kid that there were things that I was doing wrong that I didn't understand how I was doing wrong or why I was doing things wrong. So it was seeing Logan get angry and seeing Logan get frustrated that the other sides just aren't understanding him is such a big part of me.
Yeah.
And then also Crofters is just really good. TBH.
That's also a very valid answer as to why you connect with Logan. It's the love of Crofters.
I just love Crofters.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta hold on. I have to, hold on. Just hold on.
Something's happening.
I have to love on Logansberry.
We have achieved Crofters.
We have to love on Logansberry. Right now, I have a jar of Logansberry and I'm just gonna hold it. And
it's fair. Yeah. I have a jar somewhere too. I don't know where it is at this exact moment. I know I have it. Oh, Logansberry.
Well, how has Logan impacted your life?
Oh my gosh, I didn't take notes for this, so I'm just gonna vamp. I'm just gonna try my darndest. Well, I unfortunately do not like Crofters as much as Logan, so I fail, so I'm gonna leave. No offense to Crofters, I'm just not a jam guy, and I'm very picky about food and tastes and textures, and I just, with Logan, I feel like my big connection, as I sort of talked about earlier, is that, I guess very much similar to what you just said, the need to be understood. That feeling of wanting to be able to, you know, be heard and be seen in certain ways. And again, for me, be heard in the sense that I've been in a lot of situations with a lot of people where it feels like I have to do the thinking for them. Like, I've been in a lot of those types of friendships where, like, I've sort of said the joke that, like, for a lot of people, I was very Jiminy Cricket, which is funny because for the longest time, I really boycotted Pinocchio content because, haha, puppets, and I have a whole phobia, but, like, meanwhile, I'm still, like, I'm Jiminy Cricket because I'm sitting here being people's conscience. The amount of times I've had to talk people out of doing things that would have been really freaking stupid to do, and I just had to sit there and be like, can you just take a step back and listen as to why that's probably not an ideal thing to do and the potential ramifications of what would come if you did that. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, dang, I actually didn't think of that. That's a really good point, actually. Shoot. And I'm like, okay, cool. Haha. Next time you'll think, right? And they're like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I feel very Logan in the sense that I feel like The curse
of the Logan Kennies.
The curse of the Logan Kennies. It's finding those people you end up feeling responsible for and then feeling like you need to do thinking for them because they're clearly not doing it enough themselves.
Speaking because I know there's a lot of people, I've known people in my life who are definitely not Logan Kinneys, and they don't understand how we think.
Yeah, no, honestly.
It's really important to know about people who are Logan Kinneys, if you're not, that we focus, we don't really think about emotion as much as some other people do. We think about like the track, we think about the solving the problem and trying to like help. It's more like life is more like a grid for us, I would say.
I would say so.
We have to like figure it out with like a board game or something.
Yeah,
Whereas like people with emotions focus more, or people with that like more pattern mindset are more focused on like their emotions and acting with those emotions. And I think there's a healthy balance between the two, but there are some times where I get a little lost in the cold.
Oh yeah.
Hard thing.
I am nothing if not an overthinker and an overplanner with a lot of things. Because I can't stop thinking about what needs to be done, what might have to be done, what needs to happen next, and what could happen after that. I
think there's a lot of people who are Virgil Kinneys who are also Logan Kinneys because we overthink the
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Also, like, I'm a very analytical person, and I feel like in the same way of Logan, people have taken that to be less than ideal in certain circumstances, because I'm very, especially even with shows I love, I will be so overly analytical. If you've ever watched Blue's Clues with me, you will understand that I will point out every little thing, any little graphical error, any little inconsistency, and I will go at it hard and with love. But in the same way as Roman, crapping on Frozen because he loves it so much, that's what I do with Blue's Clues, and other shows. But like, there have definitely been people who, in the same way that they don't want to hear Logan, they're like, okay, shut up with your facts and figures. I will sit there and analyze certain things, and I've been known to be the most nitpicky person on the planet. So, it all falls into that, like, finding the right audience to hear what you have to say, because most people tend to get kind of sick of hearing the facts and hearing, the analytical nature that I think Logan Kinneys like us tend to provide.
And also just remember, I guess, I love how I'm like thinking of it through the lens of like everyone listening is not a Logan Kinney. But like,
I think we're just used to not being around them, so it's like we're so used to like, we're used to being like, okay, we need to explain ourselves to people.
Yeah, it feels like explaining. But yeah, we're around a lot of people. We've been around a lot of people who are not Logan Kinneys in our time, and we've come to each other like, hey, how does this person think? And the other one's like, I don't know. And then we're like, oh well, I don't know.
I remember this is the thing that I will always find funny, because I might have mentioned the story specifically in another episode, but I'll bring it up now because even if it's retreading, it's Logan related, so I feel like it's relevant enough. The reason I found out that I was a Logan Kinney, the reason that you ended up making me aware that I was a Logan Kinney, is because the first time we ever called, like, we're on a call in Discord, hanging out solo, was because you called me one day needing a Logan brain to help you through a situation that you were dealing with. I think you were trying to decide if you should go to a class or not.
I really didn't want to go to class.
And you were just like, I need a Logan brain to help talk me through this. And I just sort of like went through what would happen and like what are the, the thoughts of like, if you do go, if you don't go, will it affect, like how is it going to impact, or will it have any, and what do you need right now? So it's a lot of
the mindset of, because here's an example of how my brain works. A lot of the time, if someone says, do it because it makes you feel good, that's not enough.
Yeah.
That's not enough. That's not enough. It's just not.
Because you need to think about how it impacts everything around you, because that's how the brain
I want to overthink it. And like, I know that's honestly another reason I really love Logan, because he's an overthinker. He's one who just consistently is thinking about things. And my brain, I always talk about how my mind is like, it consistently having thoughts in my head. There's not a moment where my mind is peaceful and just quiet.
No, same.
Even if I'm relaxing and I'm trying to get all the thoughts out of my head, there's shit going on all the time.
Oh, yeah. I think that might be somewhere between Logan and Virgil as well. I know I'm the type of person who needs, like, my TV on all night playing audio, or even just in the day, because if I don't have something else that my brain can tune into, then it will constantly be thinking and thinking and thinking, and it will not stop. I literally would have, like, panic attacks. Well, that's not, yeah, no, I was because I had panic attacks when I was a young child because I would try to go to bed and my brain could not turn off. And it was, just analyzing certain things that would trigger my Virgil, and then suddenly, So, sleep's always been a problem with me. Yeah.
So it sounds like, just level with me here, it sounds like Logan has impacted and reflected in your life quite a bit then.
I'd say so. I'm realizing every second that I live that I am more and more of a Logan Kinney than I realized the previous second. So.
Me too. I definitely have a lot of Virgil and Patton in me also. Yeah. But like I think there's a lot of Logan with how I analyze things, and I think the way that my mind works, we have very similar brains, and I think that's how I was interested to talk to you personally, because like you're very willing to go into those deep like thought tracks with me. I mean, hello, this podcast.
Oh. I like getting analytical.
So, yeah. But Logan is something.
He is something. I think if nothing else, he is something. What a way to segue to the end.
Segue to the end. You got anything else to add to the podcast, Hickory?
I don't think so specifically. I think we talked a good deal about what Logan is in general and is to us. And I think we covered a lot of the most important points of him.
I love Logan. The poor boy is just dealing with a lot of... Ironically, he's dealing with a lot of repression, too.
Oh. I think they all are.
With how he's... I wonder... I love that he's just... are all the sides dealing with repression?
I would say so. I would say to some degree they all are. More or less. Because, like... Well, I was going to say because here, but we'll talk about that as we go through the rest of the episodes. But I think there's an argument to be made that they all have some form of repression in some way or another.
That's crazy.
I think Patton's the center of that, but he does it more than anyone else, but yes.
Yeah. But yeah, Logan definitely represses with his outbursts of rage and his outbursts of Crofters and things like that. So,
and even repressing the idea that he has more emotion than he wants to admit.
Yeah.
So, Logan. All
right. Well, thanks for listening once again. We're gonna be back next week.
Yeah, next week on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah. Sorry again for the late peeps. Things happen, but we're trying to get on track. We're gonna be working to get ahead of things again. It was really easy those first few weeks because we planned and recorded 3 episodes in advance, and we sort of like fell behind on things. So we're working to get back ahead of the game.
Yeah, and part of that was there was a job that kind of threw my life into a loop. As you can see, there's not a sock wall behind me anymore. I know that's present in the first one, and now it's not. My life got turned upside down.
Oh my god!
So
Fresh Prince?
I know you did that.
Am I Carlton?
Yes.
I'd be proud to be Carlton.
So we appreciate your patience and we appreciate you listening. Please feel free to share this podcast with your friends because we love having these discussions. We're going to be having a Q&A soon, so please start questions and be prepared for the future of that. So,
oh my god. Have a good day and week, peeps.
I love you all.
Love y'all.
I love you all very much.
Bye.
Hope you have a good day. Bye.